Hey guys, welcome to Music Evolve's how-to series on Jingle Bells. Today we're going to be going over the melody guitar part. We're going to start, of course, with that little intro section I created that we talked about on the rhythm guitar parts. It follows the same exact dotted quarter note pulse rhythm as the rhythm guitar parts, but this time adds one more note to it. So it sticks with the idea of pedaling on C like this. But this time it hits a D on beat 4 of the second measure, and then we do another two measures, and we go to B just like the rhythm guitar parts do, and then we play it again, but this time adding a G with it, which of course is the 5th fret of the D string, and the 3rd of the A string is C. And this time we're going to jump up another 2 frets on the next string and get a D, which is a cool little trick I like to do. Some people call it a super power chord because it's a power chord on top of another power chord. Also known as the C sus2 because it's C, D, and G, so there's not really a third. In the second half it sounds like this. Which is an F sharp. I hit it right before we go into the verse. Now you don't really have to do any of that. You could stay quiet during the intersection and then just come in on the verse if you'd like as well. Now the verse is the part where it goes dashing through the snow on a one-horse open sleigh. And that goes like this. But let's break that down before we get too far. We get G, which is the 3rd fret of the low E, and we jump all the way up to E, the 7th fret of the A string. We walk down 2 frets to D, walk down 2 frets again to C, and then end on G. And then we start again on G, and do it again. Now land on A, the 5th fret of the low E string. Now we follow that same type of diatonic planing pattern where we jump up a 6th and walk down to a 4th away from the note we just came from. In this case it's an A. We jump up to F, which is the 8th fret of the A string, walk down to the E we were just on before, and the D we were on before. And now we land on B, which is the 7th fret of the low E string. And then we do the same planing pattern again, where we hit this G on the A string, which is the 10th fret, and hit that F, and you think we're going to hit the E like we would, but this time we hit one note right before. The D on the low E string before hitting that E. You could hit the D here too. I just try to keep within a position I'm in at the moment. And that's the first half of the verse. I'll play it really quickly to show you how it goes. And that's the first half. Now we're going to start the other half almost identical. Still the same way. Right here's where it changes. So instead of going to the B and continuing that planing pattern, we go up to the high G, which is the 5th fret of the D string. So we go up to that G, hit the A, which is the 7th fret of the D string, and we walk it down, A, G, F, skip E, go to D, and then end on C. And then right at the last second, you can hit that G of the kind of O. Now playing the second half should sound like this. And that leads us to the chorus. Let's jump into the chorus now. The chorus starts on the E, so we were just around an E, so let's start on that E. We get that G again we found, which is the 5th fret of the D string, and then it goes C, D, E, which you can do the 8th fret of the low E, 5th fret of the A, 7th fret of the A. And then we go up to the 8th fret of the A for that F, to the E, the 7th fret, the 5th fret of the A string, the D, which is E, D, and then G, and we just do the whole thing again. Now it almost does the same exact thing again. Instead of going to D, it jumps up to G again, doing that same exact pattern it did coming out of the verse into the chorus. It's using it now, going out of the chorus back into the verse. So the whole chorus should sound a little something like this. And that's the chorus. Now what I do to make it a little more interesting, being that there's 4 verses in this song, I didn't want to play it the same exact way every time, so I learned it up the octave as well. So basically what you can do is, there's the G, find the G up, and you can repeat that same exact pattern. And the shapes that you learned here, right here. Like that, and you can play everything the same way you just learned it on the low E. I like to create a little embellishments just to make it a little more fun and exciting, and to give the listener a little something different to listen to each time. That way, even though it is going up the octave, just to create the difference in range and timbre, but also give them a little bit of ornamentation to make it a little more intriguing. So I might do something like this. Stuff like that. Now I also do it one more octave up as well, which is there on the 12th fret, that G. This one's a little more trickier just because you have to be compensating for that B string, so it makes the pattern slightly different. And you can play it up there as well and add different embellishments. I'm not going to go over every different little thing I did, just because usually it was an improvisation on the spot, or maybe something I worked out, but either way you can kind of use your own imagination and creativity with it and make your own little embellishments. As long as you follow generally the melody of Jingle Bells, it should be fine. We're in the key of C, so anything in C should be fine as long as you're noting the chords that are in the background and what they're doing, and not play any dissonant notes that are happening at that time. But usually if they're a passing note or a neighboring note or something like that and you're quickly going past it, for the most part you should be fine. Now for the 3rd and 4th chorus, I do something slightly different. Being that it's up here, we're all the way up to that high E now, I actually bar that and the B string below it. So I'm hitting these 4th intervals, and I slide into them from a half step. So it sounds like this. And then you can end on the B or D. Now for the 4th verse, I actually utilize my 8th string once again, using that low B string to hit a low C and a few other notes, but we're going to do it on a standard tuning guitar just because not everyone has those anyways. And it pretty much gives the same effect, especially being that we're going to be using power chords. So basically we're just going to be doing power chords instead of the melody for this part. So it starts out with a C5, F5, maintaining that same rhythm to G5, back to F5 quickly, but we're going to hit D, G, all 5s, all power chords. F5, G5, now F5, D5, G5. So basically we can break these power chords up too, to where we hit them individually. where we hit the root note and then the fifth. But the pattern basically sounds like this. I play the power chord on C, then on F, then on G, then on F, but quickly go D fifth, G fifth, and then we would end on C. So. But we don't hit the C just because that's halfway through the verse and that's right when the clean guitar comes in, and that's when we cut out. So it only plays half the verse, the other half we tacit, we just step out and don't play and come back in for the fourth and final chorus. Now the lead guitar I play in it, once again, was an improvisation as well. So I tried to stay along that line of being in the key of C and following the chords. I also stuck kind of to the C major pentatonic scale, which has a nice happy sound to it, but it also stays away from all the avoid notes that the 7-note major scale has. Now I only use that sometimes as a guideline, and of course I'll go out and reach to the other notes that I find fitting at the time. If you have trouble soloing in the major key and find it easier with less notes, try the C major scale. I know a lot more people are familiar with the A minor scale, which to me can be very cliche and limiting. Using the right instances is fantastic, but overuse can show you're inept on the guitar. So in this circumstance, try to use the relative of A minor and use its relative C major pentatonic scale. One thing I forgot to mention is that I end the song on a C major 13th chord, which is one of my favorite chords. It's the 8th fret of the low E string, and then it's going to go 7, 7, 7, 8 again, and 7. So you actually have your root, your third, your 6, which is also the 13th, the 9, then you have your 5th, and then here's your major 7, which turns that 6 into a 13. That's how I think about it. So C, E, A, D, G, and B. And that's that chord. Being that I end the chord on a C major 13th chord, there's a variety of notes I could really end on. I could end on a C, a low C, just to kind of reinforce the bottom of the chord, or I could try to be a little more beautiful with the ending and end on one of those more elegant notes of that chord, like the major 7th, which is B. You could play it there or play it up there. I actually hit it up that high on the ending of it, but I actually slide up a couple more frets to hit the D. I don't have that guitar with me right now, but you could also hit the D right there on the 15th fret of the B string, which is the 9th of the chord. So to me, sounds pretty on the end of a song. I love to do this, somewhat a little bit of a cliche of mine, of where I'll end on the 7th or the 9th, or kind of both, going back and forth in between the two, just because I love how those two notes color that very beautiful chord. A also works because it's the 13th of that chord. It's one of those extensions. So you kind of have options. You can also end on the high E, which is the major 3rd. Any of those quality notes, like the 3rd or the 7th, or any of the extensions like the 9th or the 13th, that's kind of how I think. The root in the 5th, the C or the G, is fine too. You can play them both, get a power chord out of it. But to me, once again, that's just kind of reinforcing the bottom, the low end of it. And there should be some sort of melodic instrument covering those prettier notes, and it kind of gives a little more breathtaking experience to the ending. That's how at least I see it, and I hear it that way. Anyhow, see you guys next time.